Tears of the Kingdom is, as of recording this, officially a week away. By the time this actually comes out, a little less than a week. And I'm freaking out. I'm so excited. I can't believe the day is finally almost here. Feels like it's been way too long. And it has been way too long. And I'm super ecstatic. We have lots of Zelda stuff coming over the next week and a little bit after to kind of celebrate the release. And I wanted to kick off this kind of unofficial Zelda week with talking about all of the games that came before Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I've been a Zelda fan for as long as I can remember. My very first game was Ocarina of Time, playing many, many years ago on my cousin's GameCube, and by playing, I mean they let me run around Lon Lon Ranch on Epona, and that was about it, but it was still technically my very first Zelda game, and I wanted to love the series for the rest of my life. So I'm a very big Zelda fan, and I have a lot of Zelda opinions, as many Zelda fans do, and I want to talk about those. So we are doing a tier list. I've never done a tier list before in all of my time content creating, whether it be on stream or on YouTube. So I feel like this is a very fitting first one, as I've got a lot of opinions and I'm very interested to hear your reactions to all of them, because it might get a little spicy. But hi everybody, my name is Alex, aka Quality, and welcome back to the channel. So I just found this tier list on tierlistmaker.com or whatever. I'll post the link in the description, so that way if any of you would like to make your own Zelda game tier list and also tag me in it on like Twitter or something so I can see it, please do. I'd love to hear everybody else's rankings as well. But without further ado, let's get into it. And I think we're gonna try to do this list in chronological order, at least to the best of my memory. Only because I think that's a little bit easier than trying to do them in the order they are on the tier list or in the order that they came out. All right, so I've got my handy dandy iPad here with the tier list on it. So first on our list is the game that started it all, the original Legend of Zelda for the NES, which, so I didn't grow up with an NES. I have an NES now, but I actually don't even still have the Legend of Zelda for NES. So I'm pretty sure that I played this game on either the Wii Virtual Console or it was on the one GameCube. Oh, what was it? The collection that came out on the GameCube. I don't remember what it's called, but I'll put a picture of it here once I can remember what it is. But I'm pretty sure that's how I played the original Zelda, and I don't have as strong of memories with it as I do other Zelda games, mainly because I just didn't grow up with it. It was a game I played much later on, later in high school, and I really do love and appreciate the original Zelda, despite the fact that I don't have a heavy nostalgia tie to it. It is the game that started it all, and I feel like it's one of those games where, you know, the world is kind of your oyster when you get thrown into the original game. I don't know, it's very reminiscent of that time. I also really love the original artwork for the first Zelda. You know, the pixel art, but also the original hand-drawn art. It's so of that time, and even though I didn't live through that time, it's like, that is weirdly nostalgic to me. I don't know why. I really don't know why. But so despite not having those big ties to it, I really do think the very first Zelda game is a great game. There's a reason that this series has been with us for so long, and it all started with the very first Legend of Zelda. So I think for the first one, I'm going to put it in B, just right in the middle. I know, even though I was hyping it up, I have to be critical. But B, mainly because though I beat it and had a good time with it and really enjoyed it, it's not quite where my A and S ranked Zelda games are. It's one of those games that I don't know if I'd ever go back and play again. Maybe at some point in time if I was really, really feeling nostalgic, but I don't, like, I've spent my time with it that I don't think I need to go back to it, but I still appreciate it for what it is and what it did and what it has given us even to this day. So I think B is a good spot for it. And now moving on to Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, which is a hard game. It's a really difficult game. I beat this game sometime in high school. I don't remember exactly when. And I think this one I actually emulated. I don't think I ever had it on my Wii or anything like that. I think this one I just emulated on the laptop that I had at the time. And I remember sitting up late at night in my bed just trying to play this game and having a simultaneously great and terrible time. There's actually a lot that I like about Zelda 2, and I think part of the reason I'm recalling Zelda 2 a little bit better is because of the frustration, but it did also have some really great things. Like, I love the dungeon theme, I love all the memes that came out of Zelda 2, and just how weird it is going from, you know, the very first Zelda game that really kind of set the tone for the series to a side-scroller, where it's a lot more RPG-y, I think, than the very first one. And yeah, Zelda 2 was a game that I felt absolutely accomplished finishing, but not one that I think I would play again. I don't think it's held up as well as the original Zelda. Like, even though I said I wouldn't probably play the first one again, I feel like I could. I don't think I could play Adventure of Link again. I don't think so. I do appreciate it. I think it was an interesting departure from the first one, and I think to Nintendo it kind of showed them what maybe not to do again. But I also really think that Zelda 2 is really reminiscent of the NES time. I think just being a side-scroller, like when I think of the NES and I think of Zelda, honestly Zelda 2 comes to mind first before the first one, which is weird because you'd think it'd be the opposite, but I think just because of how Zelda 2 presents itself and the type of game it is, it just resonates in my brain more with the NES than original Zelda. So I think for Zelda 2, I think despite having mixed memories, I think I'm gonna put it in C. It's not a bad game. I just wouldn't play it again. I just really wouldn't play it again. And I definitely don't think it's a better game than The Legend of Zelda. Also, I have not mentioned this in the video yet, but these are just my opinions. This isn't my objective Zelda best game list, because I don't think there could ever really be an objective list when it comes to video games. I just don't think it's a possibility, because everybody has different experiences and different things they look for in games. This is just my personal list, so I'm really sorry if you're a Zelda 2 fan and you're like, that should be an S tier. It's not one of my S tier Zelda games, so I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And next we have a fan favorite with A Link to the Past. So I also didn't grow up with an SNES. I actually don't even have an SNES, despite the console having probably the majority of some of my favorite games. So many great games on the SNES that I'm still shocked that I haven't just bought one yet. But I played a lot of SNES games. Of course, I played A Link to the Past. My friend actually let me borrow his SNES Mini sometime back in hairs school, so I could play it on original hardware, which was great. And I loved A Link to the Past. I thought it was really, really great. I love the art style. I love pink-haired Link. I don't know what it is, but I love pink-haired Link. But I loved A Link to the Past. The whole Dark World mechanic was really, really interesting. Like, it was one of those things that when experienced for the first time, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, we're going to a whole alternate dimension. We're a bunny rabbit. And it was just really cool. Link to the Past also, I think, has a really, really great story, really interesting hook right off the bat, right? You're getting talked to through telekinesis, and it's raining, and you have to go and figure out where your uncle is, and, you know, your path ends up getting wound up with Zelda, and it instantly hooked me, and I was hooked for the rest of the game. I think the game has really, really good bosses. The one I always think of when I think of Zelda is the Helmasaur. I don't know what it is. I think it's kind of cute in a weird way. But yeah, I love A Link to the Past. I think it's a great game. Is it my favorite Zelda game of all time? No. And again, I think a lot of that plays on nostalgia, but do I think it's a good game? Yeah, I definitely do. And it is one of those games that I would absolutely go back and play A Link to the Past. It wouldn't be my very first game that I would think of, but I'd go back and play it. I really, really, really liked A Link to the Past. When I think about it, it's one of those games that's weirdly cozy in a weird way. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the music, if it's the art, or what. But yeah, A Link to the Past has always been like a cozy Zelda game. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I've always appreciated it. And also, going back to the soundtrack, has just wonderful, wonderful music. I love the Dark World theme. The Lost Woods theme is like one of my favorite Zelda tracks, I think, of all time. It's so memorable. It's just so memorable. So I think Link to the Past for me definitely goes up to A tier. I think, weirdly, not to be overcritical, I know I just praised the heck out of it, but it would honestly be kind of in between B and A tier. It's like that middle factor, I think. But it definitely means more to me than the original Legend of Zelda, so I think A tier is where it belongs. Oh, and next we have one of, spoiler, my favorites. I love Link's Awakening. I really, really do. Now, when I said that I love the hook of Link to the Past, I did, but Link's Awakening, just being caught up in a storm right at the very beginning of the game, and then being transported to this island that is completely unfamiliar, especially in comparison to the past Zelda games. You're not in Hyrule, you have no idea where you are. There are Mario enemies all over the place. And it was just such a big turn of events for me. So I played Link's Awakening DX back in the day. Surprisingly, again, it's another Game Boy Color game that I don't have anymore for some reason. I think maybe it wasn't mine to begin with. Maybe I accidentally stole it from a friend and maybe gave it back. I don't remember. I really don't remember. But then most recently I did play the remake on Switch, which I thought was a really, really good remake. I thought it was really, really cute. I loved the updated art style, and I felt it was very, very fitting for Link's Awakening and the story that follows through with it. And yeah, speaking of the story, I love Link's Awakening story. It kind of made me cry a little bit at the end, and I don't think I'm alone in feeling that either. Like, it was very emotional, I felt. That's another game where I look at, like, in terms of cozier Zelda games, I feel like Link's Awakening is definitely up there, especially like the Switch remake, but I really, really liked it. I loved all the things that the DX version improved on over the original. Obviously it was in color, but also you had the color dungeon and all of that stuff, and it was just great. It was a really, really great time. It's one of those Zelda games that I could probably play over and over and over again and not get bored, but also not like stressed out like, oh, I have to finish this. Like, it's just a game that I can pick up and play whenever I'm feeling like it. Partly because it was built for a handheld, that it kind of has that just innate feeling to it. I don't know, but I love Link's Awakening. I really, really do. I think it's cute. It has one of my favorite OSTs in all of the Zelda games. I love the Link's Awakening soundtrack. Many songs that, once again, make me emotional, but also get me really hyped. Like, Telltale Heights is a very, very popular one, of course. But yeah, just Ballad of the Windfish, like, you hear that and it's like, oh, I love it. So I think I'm a little torn on this one. It's either going to be A tier above A Link to the Past or a low S tier. Man, tier lists are hard. They're really difficult. I will allow myself to edit this later. I think I'm gonna temporarily put Link's Awakening in S tier. Possibly. No, okay, I lied. I'm putting it high A. High A tier, that's where it goes. All right, that's what we're doing. We're doing high A tier. I saw it in S tier and I was like, yes, but no. So we're putting it high A tier, and I think that is my decision. Next, we're going to a game that has been regarded as one of the best games of all time, even to this day, Ocarina of Time. Now, this is the Zelda game that is much more in line with my time growing up with Zelda. Even though it came out in '96, which was the year before I was born, one of my earliest gaming memories is sitting with my older cousins as they were playing Ocarina of Time, and I really wanted to play it because I thought it looked really, really cool, and they were like, yeah, sure, you can play. And then specifically brought me to Lon Lon Ranch so I could just ride around on Epona. And it's one of those memories that I think will always stick with me with Ocarina of Time. And then many years later, when I played it for real, I loved it. It was everything that as a kid I think I had hoped and dreamed of. And all of those memories that I remember seeing of my older cousins playing it, it was finally playing out in front of my own eyes, and it just felt really, really special. And I love Ocarina of Time. I have not played it in many, many years, though, not since the 3DS remake, which the 3DS remake, I don't really like. I really don't. I have a lot of problems with the 3DS remake, and I think maybe after I eventually play the Majora's Mask 3DS remake, maybe I'll do a video talking about those versus the original and stuff like that. I'm sure the topic's been talked about for forever, but I haven't played it since then, and I would love to play it again on the N64, or at least on the Virtual Console. And I don't know, like, I think many Zelda fans look at Ocarina of Time as the Zelda formula, because ever since Ocarina of Time has come out, I feel like there's just been the responsibility to compare every game that came out afterwards to Ocarina of Time, because it has everything that most people associate with Zelda games is dungeons, story, characters, good music, lots of locations, lots of different races of people in Zelda, like the Gorons and the Zora and all of that. Like, we have so many memories just that we regard as Zelda overall attached with specifically Ocarina of Time. And like, I mean, that was one thing, like even looking at Breath of the Wild, that people kept comparing it back to Ocarina of Time, like, oh, well, it didn't have all this. So I think, it's such an impactful game to have influenced basically the rest of the Zelda releases since then, and that we keep using it almost as a benchmark for the series. I just think that's really, really interesting. And I really do love the game. I don't think it's my favorite though. It's a good game. It's a really, really good game, and there's so much there. I love the characters. The story is great. Time travel, of course, is fantastic, though we see it so often now. But I think for Ocarina of Time, that's like the whole thing, right? It's so funny, because I'm gonna put this high on the list, but I feel like I'm not talking about it as enthusiastically as some of the games that I put lower. But with Ocarina of Time, I think overall it's gonna be an A, but I think I'm gonna put it below Link's Awakening. And before anybody says anything about that, it's not because I think Link's Awakening is, again, objectively or even subjectively a better game. It's more of me talking about how I felt playing these games and like my feelings on them. So that's why it goes a little bit lower. Like, I have really, really great memories with it, but even then, it's not tied so intrinsically to my soul like our next game. Now, a divisive title, I feel. I literally got chewed out on Twitch by somebody for saying that this was one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. Majora's Mask. So here's the thing. I think Majora's Mask is a lot of people's favorite Zelda games, but people are often very quick to dismiss it, I feel. Or they used to be. They used to be very quick to dismiss Majora's Mask as, oh, it's just recycled Ocarina of Time. Oh, it doesn't have all these things Ocarina of Time does. When in fact, it takes a lot of those ideas, and yes, does it reuse assets? Yes, which there's the whole history behind it. Very easy to look up and learn about it, which I think it's really, really interesting, like how Majora's Mask came to be. But when you look at it, and as many of you know, I'm a very story-driven person. Majora's Mask story punches you in the face, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I never really expected to have that deep of a main storyline shoved in my face in a Zelda game, which for Zelda, it had always just been like an adventure game for me kind of situation. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing these things, I'm going on this quest, blah, blah, blah. Majora's Mask made me feel like there were real stakes at hand. And I kind of got that in Ocarina of Time just with how the story played out, but like with Majora's Mask specifically, the world is gonna end and you have 3 days. Something about just only having time, like 3 days to get things done, really set into motion this like, okay, I have to do this. I have to take care of this. I also think that the side quests in Majora's Mask are some of the best side quests I've ever done in a video game, which there's many, many, many wonderful ones, which I've heard that, and I have not played the 3DS version yet, so I don't have anything to bank on that, though I do know it already does things that I don't like, and does some things that I do like. One of the things I do like being that it improves the Bomber's Notebook in order to keep better track of those quests, so that's kind of cool. Because there's a lot, there's a lot, and the rewards are really honestly worth it in my opinion, just to kind of get the whole sphere of like, what's going on in Termina, you know? Like, it's one of my favorite games of all time. It really is. It really, really is. When I watch somebody play the opening cutscene, I get chills, but I just have this feeling in my soul like, oh boy, here we go. Like, it's really strange, because it's not a game that I grew up playing. As I said, like, I didn't grow up with an N64, and I didn't play Majora's Mask, I think, until late middle school, definitely on the Wii Virtual Console. And I had always heard about it, always known about it, but didn't know what to expect. I love Majora's Mask, I really do. I love it. It makes me happy, it makes me sad, it just makes me emote in general, and it's an easy S tier for me. I think that'll make some people mad. I really do. Which I understand the argument of, it's not even an original game, but it is at the same time, I guess. It does not use its own assets. It takes literal models from Ocarina of Time and puts them in, even with only slightly changed names and stuff. But that part doesn't matter to me, but what matters to me is at its core is what the game is and what the game tries to express. And I love it. I love Majora's Mask so much. And next we have the Oracle games. 2 games I also did not grow up having, but were able to get later on in life. Well, I was able to get Seasons physically later on in life, but I played Ages as well. So I really, really like the Oracle games, and I think they're really underrated. In fact, they're games that I would really like to do a replay of because I don't honestly remember a ton from them. So I played Seasons more than I played Ages, which Seasons is going to be ranked higher than Ages just because I have more memory with it. Like, I love how connected these two games are and what you do when you connect them and what you can get to kind of tie both of those stories together and have it. But I love that it has two separate experiences depending on the game that you get. In Seasons, you're able to change the seasons using the Rod of Seasons, and in Ages, you are able to go through time using, guess what? The Harp of Ages. Very funny how it works out that way. But not only that, I like how each game has a different focus on the actual gameplay itself. For Oracle of Seasons, it's a lot more combat-based, whereas Ages, it's a lot more puzzle-based, which that kind of goes with Seasons being based on the Triforce of Power and Ages being based on the Triforce of Wisdom. I still wish it would have been a triad so we could have gotten the Courage game. I don't remember. Seeds of Courage was what it was supposed to be called, maybe? I honestly don't remember, but I think that was what the third would have been called. Despite me being a very puzzly person, I actually just really loved going through Seasons. Not only because of the Seasons mechanic itself, which I think it's so unique, and especially at that point in time, we had already had time traveling games, right? But with Seasons, it's like now we're seeing different parts of the year almost. I don't know, I think that made a huge difference to me in between which one I liked the best and what one I played more of. And of course, having a physical copy of Seasons helped, but even then, I really liked that Seasons was more combat focused. So I don't know, I'd love to do a replay of both games really soon, or, you know, play Ages and maybe have somebody else play Seasons and we connect later on. I think that'd just be really cool, but I really like the Oracle games. I think they're underrated and I would love to see them pop up on Switch, whether through NSO or maybe a remake. People were talking about having a Link's Awakening-esque remake, and unfortunately I don't think that's gonna happen, but I would love it. If it did, that'd be so cool. But yeah, I think I'm gonna put Seasons high B tier and Ages high C tier, which it's weird kind of having the original Legend of Zelda in between them, but I think for Ages I just don't remember enough of for me to put it any higher. Like, it's a good game and I know that, but I have so many more memories with Seasons that I think Ages is just gonna, you know, take the lead in C tier. And next we have another one that I could probably talk about for years and years and years, and that is the Wind Waker. And I also love Wind Waker. This is the Zelda game I grew up with. Like, Wind Waker is the one. And I have so many memories of Wind Waker, playing it on the GameCube, and later, of course, the HD remake on the Wii U, which just is real nice. It's real nice to look at. But Wind Waker was another divisive title. Maybe I'm just a hipster. Maybe I'm a Zelda hipster. I don't know. But it was another divisive title because of what people had seen at Space World. They were expecting a very mature Legend of Zelda game to come out on the GameCube. And instead they got super cartoony cel-shaded Link, which I love. I love Toon Link. I think just there's so much to love about Wind Waker. Just have so many good memories playing it. Wind Waker was the Zelda game that connected me with other Zelda fans. It's like, I remember talking about Wind Waker with some people growing up and being like, oh my gosh, you also have played Zelda? Like, what? And then playing it at other people's houses and going through different dungeons and stuff like that. It's one of those games that is so special to my childhood. And I love it. I love the story. I love the art. This Wind Waker has 100% one of my favorite soundtracks. It's like, maybe I'll have to do a Zelda soundtrack ranking at some point in time, or maybe like a top 5 list or something like that. But again, fantastic soundtrack. There's so much there. There's so much there. And I love the locations. I love the dungeons in Wind Waker. It's so fun. I recently did a Wind Waker randomizer that was also Google translated, so everything was a garbled mess, and it was so much fun. It was so frustrating because I had never done a Zelda randomizer before, but it was so great. It was so great and just kind of revived my love of the game. There's just so much to do. There's so many interesting and weird characters as well, and I loved roaming the open seas with the King of Red Lions and just going everywhere. And I remember, like, the first time I played the game, I tried not to use a guide all that much in case I really needed it, but just exploring the ocean and seeing everything there was to see firsthand, it was really incredible. Like, the world felt so big to me, and I loved it. I love Wind Waker so much. It's absolutely a contender for like my favorite Zelda game, and also another one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm sure you can assume Wind Waker, it's going in S tier. It has to. It just has to. Whether or not it's before Majora's Mask, I go back on this quite literally every day of my life. For right now, I'm gonna put it next to, but the two of them are pretty equal. Like, they are very interchangeable between my favorite Zelda game of all time. Next up, we have the game that I've probably played the absolute least out of this entire thing, which I feel a little bit bad about, but that is Four Swords Adventure. I did not have Four Swords Adventures growing up, despite having played a little bit of it at friends' houses growing up. I know people love Four Swords, and I would love to play it again, but the problem is it's really hard to emulate because you need all of those people. So I'd love to see like a newer Four Swords Adventure, or just even like a new Four Swords in general, you know? Because I really like the idea of multiplayer Zelda, and I have played Four Swords on the 3DS on the 25th anniversary edition, and I played that game all the time and I loved it. But specifically talking about Four Swords Adventures, I really don't have that much experience with it. So I kind of don't want to put it in C or D because I feel a little bad, but I feel like I'm gonna put it in D, but only because D didn't play It Starts with D. I feel really bad. I'm so sorry, Four Swords fans. I don't really have anything to go off with for Four Swords Adventures, so it's a little bit tough. I'm sorry. Maybe I should make its own category of game I didn't play enough to have an opinion on. And you know, I'm gonna go a little out of order here because I can't remember when this game came out, but we have A Link to the Past and Four Swords for the GBA. This I'm gonna put in C because I did play this game. I don't have it for the GBA, but this version of Four Swords I have played, so I feel comfortable putting it in C, I think, below Zelda 2. So we're gonna go with that. I'm really sorry, Four Swords fans, I'm really sorry. And next we have Minish Cap, which is actually a game I played and completed for the first time really recently. I actually streamed Minish Cap just because I thought it was a great idea. And then I was emulating this game just so I could stream it. And then quite literally only a few days after I finished the series on stream, they announced it was coming to NSO, which is incredible, but also would have made my life a lot easier had that happened like a month before then, but that's fine. But anyways, Minish Cap was a great experience. I was really, really excited most of the time playing it. Most of the time because we'll get into it. I just had a really, really great time with it. It was so nice to just be playing a new Zelda game. And I think I was really feeling like the lack of Tears of the Kingdom at the time and how we still hadn't really gotten that much new information in the time that I had started Minish Cap. So it was just nice to be playing a new Zelda game, having that feeling, having that new sense of adventure. And also I love the art of Minish Cap. It's just got that special GBA style, which I love. I'm so nostalgic for it. I love the Game Boy Advance. I really, really do. And Minish Cap was just one that I missed out on because I didn't actually have my Game Boy for a very long time before the DS kind of took over and was the focus of everybody. And I love it. I love the art. I love the music. I love the world that Minish Cap is set in. Again, just super cute, very cozy kind of Zelda game, but also at the end, very, very stressful. I struggled quite a bit with the final boss. And I'll be honest, so this is a big thing when it comes to, I think, streaming games. Not to go on a crazy digression here, but like with streaming that game, I was getting way more frustrated than I think I would have if I played it on my own. I really do. Because when I was streaming it, I also missed a lot of the extra stuff just because I had wanted to finish the game. I had wanted to get through because I had to keep entertaining and stuff like that. And that's kind of like the trade-off I feel sometimes. It doesn't always have to be that way. I felt really pressured to just kind of get through the game rather than spend my time on all of the extra stuff. So I really want to play Minish Cap again on my own and do everything in the game, because I definitely didn't do everything. I did a few extra things, like I got a few of the scrolls and special moves and stuff like that, but I know there's more that I really definitely missed out on that I didn't experience on stream. So I'd love to play Minish Cap again, but all in all, it was a great game, despite the fact that the final boss literally almost made me cry because I was just so stressed out. But yeah, Minish Cap was great. It's an A-tier game for me. I really, really like it. I think it might be, you know what? No, it's gonna be A-tier. I almost put it in S-tier, but the reason I didn't is because, again, I really want to replay it again for just myself. And I think by doing that, it'll shoot it up to an S-tier, but I do think Minish Cap is, once again, an underrated handheld Zelda gem and just a really, really great game. So high A tier. I think it's the top of A tier. I think it wedges out Link's Awakening just a little bit for me, honestly. Both of them are really close to going into S tier, but I think Minish Cap, I enjoyed Minish Cap just a little bit more. That could change though. I feel like this could be a similar Majora's Mask and Wind Waker situation where I could, flip-flop them, but for now, Minish Cap is going above Link's Awakening, and I'm gonna stick with it. Now we have the gritty Zelda game that everybody had been hoping for since the beginning of the GameCube, Twilight Princess. Another Really, 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 really fantastic game. I love Twilight Princess. It's another Zelda game that I haven't played in a while. I never ended up picking the HD version for the Wii U, which is still one of my biggest regrets to this day because it's so expensive now that I don't know if I'll ever be able to pick it up. But I do have it on Wii, and that is how I originally played it. I was really late to the Twilight Princess party. So many people had talked about it, and many of my very, very, very dear friends were like, Twilight Princess is my favorite Zelda game. It's my 100% my favorite Zelda game. And while it's not my 100% favorite Zelda game, there is so much cool stuff in Twilight Princess, and some really annoying stuff too. Like the characters. A lot of the characters I found really, really annoying. But then you also had like Midna, who Midna's great, but yeah, I really enjoyed Twilight Princess. In fact, one of my favorite things about Twilight Princess were the dungeons and the bosses and the atmosphere of Twilight Princess. Like the general atmosphere was just so dark and dreary and really felt like it fit with the world that we were inhabiting. And I just think that's really special when a game's able to capture that so well just within its environment. Like, it emphasizes the story even more, and it emphasizes how certain characters are reacting and feeling to certain things. So I think Twilight Princess did a really, really good job at that. I love some of the zany weapons you get in Twilight Princess. I think it's great. The top is always gonna be one of my favorites. I just think it's so funny. I think it's really, really funny. Arbiter's Ground was one of my favorite parts, up there with Snow Peak. Those were two parts of the game that were just so, they're like what solidified Twilight Princess as a great game for me. There were also so many dramatic moments, especially at the end, which I won't say. It's a great game. I need to replay it. I would love to stream Twilight Princess. I thought about doing a randomizer, but I don't think I know the game well enough to do a randomizer, so I think I just do a vanilla playthrough just to kind of like refresh Twilight Princess in my brain a little bit. My one biggest gripe is fishing. I hated fishing in Twilight Princess. I remember this is a really silly story, but I remember getting Twilight Princess for the Wii, and because the fishing part is pretty early on from what I can remember, and it was so aggravating. I'm not a big fan of fishing in games a lot of the time. Sometimes it's great, like I love Stardew Valley fishing. Fishing in Fire Emblem in recent games is fine. I hated the Twilight Princess fishing. It made me so mad. It made me so freaking mad. I just didn't want to do it. So I almost put the game down, but I didn't. I persevered. And at the end, I got a pretty good game out of it. So I think Twilight Princess might actually be an S tier for me, honestly. It's teetering on that edge, but there's just so much I love about Twilight Princess that I think it's a low S tier, but I think I'd put Twilight Princess in S tier. These rankings are all over the place because some of them are so drawn by nostalgia, then others are not, and they're drawn more by like actual aspects of the game. I don't know. This list is all over the place. And now we get to the game that pisses me off the absolute most of this whole list, Phantom Hourglass. So Phantom Hourglass was one of the first Zelda games I remember physically owning and being able to call it mine and mine alone. And I was so excited because, you know, I had my DS and I was like, yes, Zelda's coming to the DS. I'm gonna be able to play Phantom Hourglass, and it's gonna be great. It has the Wind Waker graphics, it looks like Wind Waker, it's got the sea, it has all these aspects, and then it sucked so bad, and I hate it. I hate Phantom Hourglass. I really do. There are some okay aspects to it, like really interesting bosses, some pretty cool dungeons, but there's so much that game is like the definition of disappointment to me, I think. Well, and it's hard to follow up Wind Waker, which was a pretty big deal to me, to then only come back with really off-brand Wind Waker, which was what Phantom Hourglass was. I hated the Temple of the Sea King. It was just not, I'm okay with having a dungeon in a game that you're going to return to track your progress, basically. But the thing is, that was some of the most excruciating moments of my young life, was trying to get through that temple over and over and over again, and it just felt so repetitious and so boring that I really, really hated it. Really just, it ruined it for me. The soundtrack, like there are some bops. Lindbeck's theme, great. Super great. But when you listen to the ocean theme in Phantom Hourglass, especially again, after coming to Wind Waker, and maybe it's not fair to compare, but to be fair, Phantom Hourglass is a direct follow-up to Wind Waker, and it's terrible. The song is so bad. It's so bad. I just can't. D tier, get it out of my face. I can't do it. I am gonna have to put a different, like a separate category for Four Swords. It doesn't feel fair to have it in the same category as Phantom Hourglass. Like, I just can't. I really can't. That's my opinion on Phantom Hourglass. I'm sorry if you grew up with Phantom Hourglass and like it. I know a lot of people that did. A lot of people say that Phantom Hourglass is one of their favorite DS games or one of their favorite Zelda games of all time. And I can't empathize, but I guess I'm happy for you, I think. And next, we have a slight improvement, in my opinion, Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks, I think, took a lot of the things that Phantom Hourglass did right and expanded upon them, while still being at least a slightly better game, but also still had a lot of the same problems. The nice thing about Spirit Tracks, it added a few new features like the train and moving around that way, Zelda being a companion of sorts where you could put her into the Dark Nuts. That was always kind of cool, but it still did not satisfy that Zelda handheld itch that I had, you know? And I wanted more from a console I loved so much, like the DS. Like, I wanted more from a big mainline Nintendo series. And Phantom Hourglass totally missed the mark on that one. And Spirit Tracks just kind of left me wanting like more, being like, okay, what else can you do with this though? Like, I get it, we have the dual screens, we have the ability to do this, but like, what else? What else could there be? I found the story of Spirit Tracks a little bit better. The music was miles better. There are so many good songs on the Spirit Tracks thing. And again, Spirit Tracks has great bosses. Like, I really, really, really like the bosses. And the items in Spirit Tracks are pretty cool too. So I think Spirit Tracks is gonna be a low C for me, just because I do think it's an improvement over Phantom Hourglass, but did it satisfy me in the way I wanted it to? It really didn't. It just didn't. And left me wanting more from handheld Zelda, which the nice thing is we do get that in a little bit, but at the time, as a child, I was sorely disappointed. All right, now we're gonna get into a really spicy one, I think. Skyward Sword. Especially with the HD remake that came out on the Switch a few years ago, my opinions with Skyward Sword are all over the place. So I remember picking up Skyward Sword on launch date. I did not get the gold Wiimote, unfortunately, because it was just a little too expensive. But, you know, I had my great shiny golden Skyward Sword case. I was going through like a Zelda renaissance at that point in time. Like, that was the year that little old Alex became a true gamer, I think. Like, I'd been gaming my whole life up until that point, but that was the year where I started to really care about video games, like on like a very personal level. And I think part of it was I was starting to get my own money, so I was able to start buying a little bit of my own games, and I was able to kind of cultivate the games that I was really playing, I guess. And I was so excited for Skyward Sword. Also, for context, on the Wii, I played Skyward Sword before playing Twilight Princess, just so we all know that. So I was really excited because at that point in time, I hadn't had a Zelda game on my Wii, and I didn't like it. At first, we're gonna get to that point. There was a lot to like about it, right? The story was very interesting right off the bat. However, once you kind of got into it, I was like, I can't stand the combat. Like, I feel like I need to stand up. I like to go extra for things, but I felt like I needed to stand up in order to really swing the sword around. And then after a while, it just got really tiring. And then, you know, I realized I didn't have to do that, and I sat back down on the couch. But after a while, I was just like, I don't want to be doing the motion controls. I really just don't. And they weren't very responsive, despite the Wii Motion Plus being a thing that I needed. It just didn't work for me. And I know it worked for some people. Some people thought it was really, really fun, but I couldn't get behind it, especially during boss battles. Like, I felt like I couldn't focus because of how much I was swinging the Wiimote around, you know? So it didn't work out for me. And yet, there is so much to love about Skyward Sword. I love the story of Skyward Sword. I love that it is the definite beginning of the Zelda timeline, and that we get this huge origin story that just kind of shows how much has changed over the course of Zelda history. And I love that aspect of it. The soundtrack is one of, if not maybe my favorite Zelda soundtrack of all time, which is weird to say for a game that I did not particularly like playing, but I love the Skyward Sword soundtrack so much that it's kind of ridiculous. And honestly, I liked the art style. I liked how goofy the characters looked. And I loved Skyloft. I thought Skyloft was such an interesting little hub world. But then, going back to the bad side of things, you had the sky that was so empty and desolate, and you had like not many islands that you could go visit. Especially, I hate to keep using Wind Waker as my benchmark, but for something that had a big, expansive, open area, there was a lot to do in the Great Sea, whereas there was not a lot to do in the sky, which I think a lot of people were expecting, myself included. So the things that were there were like kind of cool. I like the bamboo area. That's one of my favorite songs, I think, in the game is in the bamboo trial area, but everything else, it was empty. It was really, really empty. But same thing with like Majora's Mask, Skyward Sword had some really fun quests and stuff like that. Just fun things to do. Obviously the stamina was a big problem. I'm going back and forth because this is how I feel about Skyward Sword all the time. I go back and forth of, is this a good game or is it not a good game? I really don't know anymore. It's so tough. And after playing the HD version, which I enjoyed having the option to have controller controls. But even then, I felt those were confusing too, that I just kind of went back to the motion controls. So it was a little weird. I have so many emotions about Skyward Sword. And then you have Groose. And I love Groose. I really love Groose a lot. I think he's one of my favorite, I think, weird Zelda characters, where he's just a goofball, and I really like him. I think for this list, Skyward Sword, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, because when I think about Skyward Sword, I think like C. But in this case, C is not the middle, but B is. So I think Skyward Sword is gonna go at the top of B tier. I can't believe I'm saying that. I really can't believe I'm saying that. Had you asked me a few years ago, I would have said C or D. Skyward Sword was one of my least favorite games for a really long time because I was so frustrated with it because I think part of the reason is I wanted to like Skyward Sword so bad, and the fact that I was having such difficulty with the controls and actually playing the game. Oh, other things, Skyward Sword has my favorite dungeons in any Zelda game too. I love them. See, the more I talk about it, the more it sounds like it should be an A tier, but I just can't put it in A tier because I hate the controls so much. So next we have A Link Between Worlds, which is my favorite Zelda handheld. I love A Link Between Worlds. I thought revisiting A Link to the Past in that world was really, really fun, and I think it came at a time where people were almost really nostalgic for A Link to the Past. Really, really liked the new mechanics they added into it. I love the art style, loved the music, just loved playing it on my 3DS. It felt like a game that fits so well on the 3DS. I loved going into the wall. I loved exploring this world in a new way, and frankly, I love doing the dungeons in any order I wanted. I really hope that is a thing, assuming we get actual dungeons for Tears of the Kingdom, that they bring 2 Tears of the Kingdom. And there's just so much to love about A Link Between Worlds. This was another one I got flack for because a lot of people were like, it's just A Link to the Past. And I'm like, yes, but it does a little bit more for me than A Link to the Past did. It really does. It's one of those games that I have a lot of good memories playing on the 3DS. It was one of the first 3DS games I had, I'm pretty sure, and it was just one that it opened up to me what the 3DS could do, because I was not a 3DS believer at first. I thought the idea of a 3DS was kind of dumb, because I love the DS so much, and I was like, why are we just getting the same thing but in 3D? Like, why? And I think a lot of people had that same deal, partially because of how poor the marketing for the 3DS was. In a weird way, A Link Between Worlds kind of opened my mind up like, no, this is actually a pretty nice handheld, and it looks good in 3D, I really like it. I think the renting out weapons system was a little bit weird. I don't know if I'd like that back. I thought it was a unique taste, and I mean, we got Ravio because of it, that's kind of fun. But I don't know if I'd ever want to see that again. But that's kind of what allowed you to be able to do whatever dungeon in order. So I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that. I like how finding a weapon in a dungeon is a sign of progression, but I also like that you can do them in any order. So I don't know, but I really, really like A Link Between Worlds. I'd say it's definitely within like my top 10 Zelda games. I used to say it was in my top 4, and I don't know, maybe it technically is. I think maybe it technically is. But I love A Link Between Worlds. I think it's great. I don't really have a ton to say about it, honestly, though. That's another game that I'd love to do a replay of very, very, very soon. Just because it's a very fun, very happy game. And sometimes we need that. And sometimes I think, especially for Zelda, I just need something that I can just pick up and play for however long I want to play, and just be happy playing it, I think. So I have nothing but positive memories about A Link Between Worlds. So I'm gonna put it low S tier, I think. Below Twilight Princess for now. I feel like maybe that could change, but I don't know. Twilight Princess has just been on my mind so much that I feel like it gets a little bit of an edge, but Link Between Worlds is really good. If you haven't played it, which surprisingly a lot of people I know have not played A Link Between Worlds, I really recommend it. It's a nice little time. It's just a good little Zelda game to just kind of do. Again, the story's pretty nice. Like, it's not anything groundbreaking, You have a lot of the same mechanics that you do in A Link to the Past, 2 different worlds, working in that kind of stuff, but I really, really liked it. It's a game that made me happy, and that's why it goes in S tier. And now we have one more mainline game on the list. For whatever reason, Triforce Heroes wasn't on this, but I would probably put Triforce Heroes in C, mainly for the reason that I didn't have friends to play with, so I didn't really play it a lot. So Triforce Heroes gets an honorary C ranking. We have Breath of the Wild, the most topical game as of right now, as its direct sequel is just about to come out. And Breath of the Wild was truly a life-changing game for me. One, it changed everything that I had known about Zelda up until that point by getting rid of so many well-loved, long-term, preconceived notions about the series and adding so much more. But also, it's the very first game I played on my Switch, and my Switch itself was kind of a life-changing thing too. I mean, without the Nintendo Switch, I probably wouldn't have ever started doing content creation. So you have the system to thank for it, and you kind of have Breath of the Wild to thank for it too. So yeah, Breath of the Wild was pretty life-changing. I'll never forget the day that my friend came over with his Wii U copy of the game, right after the game came out. And I loved it immediately. I loved running around. It was so different than any Zelda game I had played before. And I knew about open world. I had played open world games before, but it being Zelda, having those two ideas connect was so mind-boggling to me at the time. And then, you know, you kind of get off the Great Plateau and you understand a little bit more about what's going on. I loved it. Of course, Breath of the Wild is not a perfect game, and there's a lot that I hope Tears of the Kingdom improves on because of it. Like, I wish there was a better story. I wish the story was more in my face, honestly, because I do believe there are ways to do that while still having the open world idea and feel while still incorporating a much more detailed story along with it. So that is my big hope. But I also think that, you know, adding traditional dungeons in some semblance, I would love a hybrid where we have kind of the shrines, but also dungeons that, you know, really do help progress the story along in some way, or it's very beneficial to do and it's noticeably beneficial to go do them and all of that. Like, and it seems like we're getting something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I love Breath of the Wild. It means a lot to me. It's one of those games that I streamed. It was one of the longest series I think I did relatively early on in my streaming career, I guess. And I made so many friends because of Breath of the Wild. I really did. It got more people that I don't think had ever played a Zelda game before to play Zelda, including my mother. She loves Breath of the Wild. It's one of her favorite games of all time. And she's become a Zelda fan because of it. So having a game unify me and some unlikely friends and family members was really special, because for the first time, it felt like one of my interests was finally like expanding to other aspects of my life, and that felt really great, you know? I have really wonderful memories playing Breath of the Wild. I played it several times at this point in time, and I really love it. I love the feel of the game. I love, honestly, how empty it is. This is one of those opposite situations where, like, the sky in Skyward Sword couldn't do it for me, but because it's intentional in Breath of the Wild, it's intentionally empty, that's really what means a lot to me, is it embraces the feeling of the story it presents, where it's really, like, it's all up to you to figure out what to do, and I really love that. I really, really, really love that. I think Breath of the Wild has to be an S tier, and I think it's gonna go right in the middle of S tier, because there are problems with it that I hope get addressed. I hope to be putting Tears of the Kingdom higher than Breath of the Wild on the list after the game comes out, if I'm being completely honest. That's my hope. But it's a game that means a lot to me. It is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, despite the argument that some people are like, it's not really a Zelda game. It is. It's in the title. Like, I mean, it is a Zelda game, and despite it not following the same formula that a lot of Zelda games that came before it do, it is still a Zelda game to me, and thus it is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. I really love it. I just really, really love it. I know that's been a lot of the list, is me just kind of like gushing about these games, but I think that kind of just is a testament to how much I really like the series and how much the series means to me. I adore The Legend of Zelda, and I'm so excited for Tears of the Kingdom. And looking at this tier list, I feel a little bit bad. I feel like some could be moved around, but for the sake of the video, this is what we're sticking with, so you know, that's what it is. That's what it is. Anyways, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that tier list. Please tell me your Zelda opinions. I love to hear Zelda opinions. I love to hear gaming opinions in general, but Zelda opinions just really get me going. I love to hear them. I love to hear your experiences with the series. and all of that fun stuff. Please feel free to do a tier list and let me know. Tag me on Twitter or something like that. Like, absolutely. Tell me what your favorite Zelda games are. That is our first video of our Zelda celebration type thing. I hope you enjoyed. And, you know, if you did, maybe consider giving the video a like. And if you aren't already subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. That'd be fantastic. Anyways, everybody, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!